I want you to look at this character. Do you like their design? No? Well, I don't care if you don't, because you need to pull for them to fight HP inflation. Oh, you don't have any pulls? Well, that's what your wallet is for, so pay up. Listen, no pressure or anything, but your account will be bricked if you don't pull my new characters. Now, how would you feel if that's how gacha games work? Well, that's how some games already function. But DG, you don't need to clear endgame. Not everybody should be able to clear it anyways. First of all, there's limited pulls locks behind endgame. Second of all, when your content for endgame is players waiting around for 3 weeks at a time doing nothing but dailies, waiting for a bloated story with no skip button, the least you can do is make the endgame fair and fun to play and keep player retention that way. Regional gimmicks are the best way for a gacha company to give you the illusion of a refreshing mechanic, primarily used in endgame to give you a better experience. However, these mechanics in reality just give you FOMO to pull for the new character, making you think you will miss out on keeping up with full clearing the endgame. Or even worse, making you think in order to make your favorite characters better, you have to spend your next paycheck on your virtual wife to pull multiple copies of her so that she stays relevant for longer. It's like these games punish you for having a main character that you like to play more than others. The Wuthering Waves developers have shown us that they are committed to making fun gameplay-oriented characters, instead of giving a group abilities that'll make you feel like you're missing out on the peak of damage or quality of life potential. Being an open world game where mobility tools are given to every character and combat not being turn-based, there will be no need to ever implement regional gimmicks to spice up gameplay. The gameplay is already difficult enough with the more reaction time based combat, and that can be frustrating, so if somebody needs their holograms cleared, then hit me up. What the What? Now, if you were thinking that flight was a regional gimmick, yes it could be, but not in this context. I'm not counting it because it does not affect combat and you can use flight for free. I will say that the weapons in Wuthering Waves are starting to get out of hand in terms of not only providing a lot of damage needed to make rotation smoother, but also starting to become increasingly more exclusive to the character that they are meant for. Although I don't think it's a game-breaking issue just yet, but that really has nothing to do with this, so sorry for the unsolicited yap, my bad. A gacha game that is a huge offender of the regional gimmick and is the inspiration of this video is Hoyoverse's most popular creation.
I'm just not into it. The first stream I was into it, it was new to me, but then I played Wuthering Waves again. And then going to Genshin after Wuthering Waves, I think that's one of the worst things to do. I think you're just setting yourself up to hate the game.
I do think that Genshin did have a successful implementation of a regional mechanic. And yes, I know Genshin praise in 2025 is very hard to come by. So if you like Genshin, feel free to replay this part over and over again. The Bond of Life feature was something I felt like was fine because it actually had a purpose to serve. With healing being so prominent in meta teams for so long, this new gameplay feature introduced an idea of your character not being able to receive healing while in the Bond of Life state. And even better, there is only 3 characters that can make use of this mechanic. So if you don't like the idea of it, then it's not being forced onto every single character being released. And at the time, it's not like those characters were super oppressive and they were taking over the game. Well, except one of the highest selling banners of all time and the most anticipated characters in gacha history, Siegeween. Oh, and besides the real Hydra Archon, I forgot to mention that some girl with a bad temper and a tall French woman with a flimsy sword are the other Bond of Life characters. Now, seeing that the devs did such a good job with Bond of Life, it's kind of upsetting to see the direction that the game is going in. Genshin Impact being a similar game in nature, I'm not sure why they've finally decided to add better exploration with the introduction of the Night Soul mechanic in Natlan. Night Soul looks cool, sure, but it's the start of a bad practice. Wuthering Waves ended up copying the formula of Genshin and made their exploration system way better by adding free flight in the 2.0 update. When a competitor outclasses you, there's nothing wrong with matching their energy. We've seen it in the hero shooter genre with Marvel Rivals forcing Overwatch back into their old 6v6 format, or Palworld making Game Freak insecure about how bad the newest Pokemon games really are. Okay, maybe the Pokemon thing wasn't the best example, but Hoyo can at least add one thing from their competition and not troll their audience with what they thought would be artifact loadouts from Wuthering Waves. It's crazy because Genshin Impact needed this feature even more than WoWa because they have more characters and a lot more artifact sets. You could say the same thing about exploration because the map in their game is so much bigger that flight would be a way more useful feature in Genshin. Instead of just giving in and taking a page out of WoWa's book, they've instead decided to have the ego of 12-year-old boys and put their own spin on exploration QOL and lock it behind the gacha. I don't play Genshin anymore, but I've been hearing recently that the Abyss is extremely hard and close to impossible for casuals without Natlan units. Considering the majority of the player base for Genshin Impact is casuals, I don't see how the Nightsoul mechanic has been good for anyone. If anything, it just seems like those devs are high schoolers the way they're trying to peer pressure you into pulling for these newer characters. Now that I think about it, that would actually explain a lot if they were high schoolers. Sadly, Nightsoul is not the last of this peak game ruining material, as I'm sure Genshin is gearing up to add something of the sort in Nod Cry. Probably something where if you aren't using a unit from Nod Cry, your character just freezes to death and gets turned into a time capsule. Let me stop talking before I give them good ideas. But maybe they'll take a more tame idea from their sister game Zenless Zone Zero. The miasma mechanic in Zenless is easily the worst endgame addition to ZZZ yet. Okay, stop typing that comment. I know you can still clear. It doesn't matter if you can, the mechanic is still toxic for the game. You can't give me a good reason as to why it was necessary to add something like this to Zenless. With the HP inflation already happening way faster compared to its Hoyo predecessors, there already was no need to add an extra shield on top of the daze bar. And then make it to where if you pull a certain unit, the boss feels way better to do. Sitting there and saying it's not an issue is exactly what these Hoyo devs want you to do. They want to add gimmicks that will incentivize you more and more to pull for the new character, and before you know it, it'll be, it's fine, just save for M1 R1, but that should never be the norm. Why does it seem like some people are allergic to blaming the people for making the game predatory, but instead want to blame you for calling out the facts? Your game will never get better if people never say anything about its bad mechanics. I still play ZZZ and it's potentially my favorite Hoyo game of all time, but at the rate it's going right now, ZZZ will end up in a worse state than HSR is in, and that sounds like a nightmare. I couldn't imagine power creep worse than Star Rail. HSR doesn't necessarily have any regional gimmicks yet, but I will say that the addition of the global passive for casters was the biggest social experiment they've done. This was Hoyo trying to push the limits of what they could get away with, and if you were one of the people that quit Star Rail because of this cringe addition to the game, then I'm proud of you and you'll get a 5-star in your next pull. And by that I mean Ling Yang, so you're welcome. And yeah, I understand that the global passive isn't that good, so it shouldn't be a big deal, but even if that is the case, it sets a horrible standard for the game, and I guarantee it would have become a common thing if the backlash wasn't so crazy. You're welcome. All in all, any feature in a gacha game that's added in order to make you feel like you're missing out on gameplay QOL that you can't have with your old characters is just an outdated and boring practice at this point, because there is a ton of new good gacha games out right now. By the way, I've been playing Etheria Restart. It's actually really fun. For those who play, I got Heinrich in 15 pulls, so hey, if you have bad luck, my fault. But there's even new games coming out in the next year or two looking to take that throne of best gacha. And we all know with the saturation of the gacha market that there's only so many gachas you can play. So if there's any red flags I ever see in Wuthering Waves, I'll be sure to let Kuro know that they need to lock in. But don't worry, I don't think that regional gimmicks will ever come to Wuthering Waves. Thank you all so much for over 1,000 subs in a week. I'm always trying to find a topic that you'll find entertaining so you can watch something while you eat. That's all I have for now. Have a good day. Peace.